So what I'd like to do in this video is explain the difference between US survey feet and foot units between Civil 3D and Trimble Business Center. First of all, Civil 3D does not recognize the difference between US survey foot or foot. You're working in an XY Cartesian coordinate system, which is basically feet or meters. So in my project I have here, my Civil 3D drawing, my units are really feet or meters. There's no US survey feet. Business Center does recognize US survey feet or international feet. So when you create the project, you select a US survey foot or a foot unit. Now, when you bring in an AutoCAD drawing, so like I have here, I've got this AutoCAD Civil 3D drawing, and all I did was bring it into Business Center. And what I want to show you is that by bringing it into Business Center, if we take a look at these 2 points, okay, so I'm going to look at this one here. I'm going to ID in Civil 3D. I'm going to ID this point right here. And you can see the coordinates down here is 953.594 and 847.7739. If we come over to Business Center here and we take a look at this Explore command, I'm going to pick this line and I'm going to grab that corner right there. I can see my coordinates are exactly the same. Okay, so 84 northing, 847.774, and the 953.95 or 594. So bringing a Civil 3D drawing into Business Center does not scale or change the objects because the AutoCAD drawing in the header of the file does not indicate whether it's what type of units it is. It's whether it's feet, meters, or whatever. It's just basically X, Y, and Z. So when you bring it into Business Center sees it and identifies that there's no indication. It's basically unitless, so I'm going to bring it in as it was in Civil 3D. Now, going the opposite way, if I go to the export command and I export out the drawing as a CAD file, you'll see that Business Center does give us the ability to assign and export a unit. Now we could change this to unitless or foot or whatever, but you don't need to. It's actually a factor in Civil 3D that or depending on what you're going to with AutoCAD, what you may want to do. So that's an option. You could do that here when you export it out if you're giving it back to somebody. But as far as sending data out to the field, if you were to do a DXF, same thing. When you write the DWG and the DXF from Business Center throws in the header of the file what units it is. So it tells it that it's in US survey feet. So if you were to bring it into another program that understood what the header units are, that header would determine whether it needs to be scaled or not. When you're sending it out to our machines and our collectors, the project in SiteWorks, for example, is set up with US survey feet. So everything should work. Plus, you're also applying on a project the calibration, which would also affect it. Now, you want to make sure that you're working in US survey feet. You export into US survey feet to the machine. What I want to focus here is going back into Civil 3D and show you what happens. So I've exported out a portion of this project, and I have it here in a drawing that I've exported out. Okay, I'm going to bring that into Civil 3D. Now, you're going to see what happens when I bring it back into Civil 3D. It's 0, 0, 1 and 1, or scale factor. You'll notice that now it's shifted, okay? That's because Civil 3D, in recent years, since 2017 or 18, I think it's 18, they've implemented the ability to recognize that file that's been brought in. So when I look at units, I type in units here, you'll see that my insert scale is basically set to feet, right? That's not my drawing scale, that's my insert scale. So it only affects objects that are inserted, not exported, and it's set to feet. Now, some of yours may be set to unitless. So let's go ahead and let me cancel. And I'm going to undo. Okay. We'll get rid of that block. Okay. And I'm going to go to units, and I'll show you here. If I go to units, oops, try that again. Let's go to units. Sorry. Can't type units, and let's change that to unitless. Click OK, and let's bring it back in. If I bring it back in, at 0, 0, 1, and 1, you'll see that it falls directly on top of my project. So it's really more of how that person imports it. If they have it set to feet, Civil 3D recognizes in the header, because that's written now in my drawing that I exported from Business Center. I'm telling Civil 3D that I'm in US feet, but AutoCAD doesn't really. Well, I've assigned, told it that it's feet, so therefore it's trying to apply a scale. It's actually not correct. You'll notice, I'm going to undo. Okay. In recent versions of Civil 3D, they did implement the ability to now, if I go to units, I can set US survey feet. So this is a fairly new addition. You'll see you can get a warning sign that prior to version 17, this wouldn't work. All right. So you want to be, cognizant of what version of Civil 3D you have. So now when I bring in this drawing and I bring it into here and I go 0, 0, 1, 1, you'll see that it falls directly in the same spot, because there's no scale being applied, because it's US survey feet. I'm bringing it in at US survey feet, and I'm telling Civil 3D that it's US survey feet. When you tell it that it's feet, meters, whatever of the file you're bringing in, AutoCAD is going to try to rescale it. Okay. Now that's just with the CAD information. Now, if you export out Land XML files under settings, and you right click and go to drawing settings here, you'll see here that it says international feet. Okay. That has no bearing on the AutoCAD drawing brought into Business Center. It only happens when you're importing and exporting data. So you'll see here my drawing units is only feet or meters, like I said. So if I export out, if I had a surface in here and I export it out as this setting being set to international feet, in the header of that Land XML file, it will identify it as a foot, not US survey feet. So when you bring it into Civil 3D, your surfaces will not line up with what you expect them to be, because Business Center is looking at the Land XML file, thinking that it's in feet, and therefore is going to scale it accordingly because it's in US survey feet. So you want to be careful when you're exporting out of Civil 3D that you set this to US survey feet so that it writes US survey feet in the header of the Land XML file. But like I said, that has no bearing on the actual CAD line work DWG. So hopefully that helps kind of clear up a little bit about how the units work in between Civil 3D and in Business Center. So in most cases, you just drag and drop in from Civil 3D to AutoCAD, or sorry, to Business Center, and everything should line up accordingly. You should have no problem. You just want to make sure the Land XML file as well. So you can also look, I have another video on the Land XML file, which is a separate video, which shows you how to deal with that units in Land XML, and you can search for that as well.